The Chinese have announced that they're going to go to the moon. In fact, they will probably beat the United States. NASA last year admitted that their timeframe is behind the Chinese timeframe. Michio Kaku shares China's incredible lunar discovery and takes you on an unprecedented journey among the stars. What could be this month's unexpected discovery? How will it change our understanding of the universe? People of color will land on the moon, then we will build around the moon. Travel through the universe with us to answer these burning questions and uncover exciting truths hidden at the center of the moon. Get ready for a real adventure. Mysterious spring lunar water source. Our closest neighbor in space, the moon has always been a mystery. Recently, Chinese scientists have made surprising discoveries that begin to answer some of the biggest questions about the moon. Just 2 years ago, China launched a robotic spacecraft into the vast dark area of the moon that we can see from Earth. This region is called Oceanus Procellarum, or Ocean of Storms. The spacecraft called Chang'e 5 landed near a large mountain on the moon called Mount Lao Mei. The most satisfying thing? For the first time in nearly 50 years, a spacecraft collected samples from the moon and sent them back to Earth. The last time this happened was in 1976 during the Soviet invasion. Many scientists believed that all the water on the moon disappeared due to the heat when the moon was formed approximately 4 billion years ago. But it turned out not to be so. There is actually a lot of water frozen into ice on the moon. This ice is usually found at the poles of the moon, which are always dark. NASA plans to send astronauts to this region as access to these waters will be beneficial for future expeditions. Let's uncover this amazing phenomenon. Chang'e doesn't just see water. More than 60 ounces of lunar soil and rock samples were returned, rich in rare minerals such as Chang'e and helium-3. But things don't end there. Chang'e used onboard instruments to take measurements before returning to Earth, indicating that water may be present on the moon's surface. The question then becomes, where does this water come from? While some scientists believe that it may have been brought to the moon by a star, others believe that there may be invisible water on the moon. The answer to this big question may be found in lunar samples collected from the northwestern side of the moon by China's Chang'e 5 spacecraft. According to reports from Chinese and European pros, this model contains small glass beads of different colors, like small SS. So how did they get there? Perhaps they were created from the heat of meteorites hitting the moon. The most satisfying thing? These little glasses have water lines. Yes, you heard right, there is water on the moon. Scientists from the Chinese Academy of Sciences have shown that there are approximately 2,000 kilograms of water in the crystals per ton of lunar soil. The surprising thing is that these glass beads can be found anywhere on the moon, from the equator to the poles, because the moon has been hit by meteors throughout its life. While scientists believe that the water on the moon is mostly in the form of hydroxy groups, it is also found in molecular form. They estimate that up to 270 billion tons of water could be trapped in the glass beads. In 2010, NASA estimated that there were approximately 600 million tons of ice in the moon's Arctic crater. But this new discovery shows that the moon's Arctic crater has a larger lake. The best part? This water can provide a whole new dimension of life that we never expected. The lunar samples returned by Chang'e 5 are smaller than those collected by the US Apollo program or Soviet robotic missions. Recent research shows that the glass containing these pearls was formed 2 billion years ago, specifically during the meteorite crisis, similar to the events that wiped out the dinosaurs 68 million years ago. You may ask, how does water get into moon crystals? Turns out this might be because of our sun. Scientists believe that the beneficial effect of hydrogen atoms from the solar wind enters the glass beads and combines with oxygen. When the sun heats the beads, they release some hydrogen, which plays an important role in the moon's water cycle. So these glass beads are not just water, they control how the moon moves around it. With this discovery, the difficulty of finding a place is on the brink of change. This prompted scientists to investigate whether water on the moon could support life for humans on long-term missions. Far from Earth, a research team from the Institute of Geology and Geophysics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences examined the data in depth. Can they find it? There are signs of open water in the Chang'e 5 text. Scientists identify H2 molecules by their spectral reflectance, which is a measure of how a material reflects sunlight. The impact is far-reaching. There may be more water on the moon than previously thought, said Matt Seek, a senior scientist at the Planetary Science Institute in Tucson, Arizona. This is a far cry from the desolate space the Apollo astronauts described when they returned in 1969. The idea that the moon was a dry, barren wasteland began to collapse. The Indian Space Research Organization Chandrayaan-1 found signs of hydration on the sun's surface, but it is not yet clear whether it is water or hydroxyl, a substance similar to gutter cleaner. Postdoctoral researcher Kathy Wunner said, later research showed ice was present in shadow craters near the moon's poles. When scientists re-examined the original Apollo samples, they found that water molecules trapped within glass beads and minerals caused head scratching and some skepticism. Is this water really moving? Moon water or water from Earth in Houston? What happened a month before China's lunar lander Chang'e 5 detects water in the solar system? NASA is working on an announcement. They claimed that there was water in the moon of the sun. They were all 45,000 feet above the ground. Yes, you heard right, NASA uses the Stratospheric Infrared Observatory to obtain signals at specific wavelengths of water molecules. These findings suggest that water on the lunar surface may be more abundant than we thought, and may be longer than ice at the moon's poles. All previous studies pointed to the existence of water, but the real game-changer was China's recent moon landing. As geologist Matt Seeker points out, the resulting spectral reflectance data must be carefully adjusted for temperature to determine how much water is present. But the challenge is to determine the temperature of the object from very long distances. This is what makes Chang'e 5's mission extraordinary. It can measure temperature directly by landing on the sun, eliminating uncertainty. But don't expect to see babbling streams or sparkling lakes on the moon just yet. Chang'e found a small body of water hidden in the lunar soil in a region ironically called Oceanus Procellarum. Scientists believe this water may be the product of the solar wind, a flow of radioactive material emitted by the sun. The water is formed when the solar wind, rich in hydrogen atoms, hits the oxygen in the moon's soil and rocks. Interestingly, more water is seen in lunar rocks in the same area, indicating another known water source, rare moon crystals. But there's more to the story. Scientists have made another jaw-dropping discovery: a rare solar system that could power the Earth. The China National Space Administration has made headlines for its success in space exploration, competing with the United States National Aeronautics and Space Administration. China built a station, embarked on many missions, and made great discoveries. The last of these surprised the scientific world. So what exactly is the moon theory discovered by Michio Kaku? The crystals found in lunar basal grains in 2020 are made of a material previously unknown to science and contain key components for the nuclear fusion that powers the sun and stars in our galaxy. Following the leak, the China National Space Administration and the China Atomic Energy Agency announced that a new lunar material called Belpar was discovered after China's Chang'e 5 robot mission. It was discovered by scientists from the Beijing Institute of Uranium Geology while examining lunar surface samples. China now joins the United States and the former Soviet Union as the only countries to have discovered new material on the moon. This is thanks to the first lunar sample return mission since 1970, which successfully returned more than 1.7 kilograms of lunar samples to Earth. The cherry on top? The new moon was named after the Chinese mythological moon goddess Chang'e by the Beijing Institute of Uranium Geology. They call it Chang'e. Now, let's talk about the mission that brought us this extraordinary discovery. The Chang'e 5 mission robot set off from Yunnan province and returned to Earth with 1,731 g of lunar rocks and soil, 46 years after it last collected lunar material. The mission is an exciting 23-day adventure and one of China's most challenging missions to date. After successful recovery, the lunar samples were divided into 21 groups and sent to scientists in 13 laboratories to work on 31 research projects. This achievement recorded China's name in the history of space exploration, becoming the third country after the United States and the former Soviet Union to discover lunar data. Many departments, including the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Natural Resources, have contributed to the study of lunar structures. The tiny rocks found on the moon are no wider than human hair, but they open doors for scientists that they could not even imagine in this world. Crystals formed during the volcanism of the Moon about 1.2 billion years ago contain an extraordinary element, helium-3. Such a big surprise forced Michio Kaku to announce the news to the world. We'll return to Earth in the next few hours. Structure of star rock and debris. Chinese ground crews wait for an unmanned mission to land. What's so special about helium-3, you may ask? Among the nearly 140,000 lunar particles returned by the Chang'e 5 lunar exploration mission, scientists found traces of a rare and potentially volatile element, helium-3. This unusual element of helium, although rare on Earth, is believed to be abundant on the Moon, having been deposited directly onto the lunar surface by the solar wind over thousands of years. What is the significance of this discovery? Nuclear fusion. Helium-3 is considered a fuel source that could revolutionize the production and use of clean and efficient energy on our planet. Scientists have long considered helium-3 to be a valid candidate for nuclear fuel. To give you a quick Science 101 guide, nuclear fusion occurs when two light atoms combine at high temperatures to form a heavier atom, just like a star receives energy. But so far, we have not been able to reproduce the powerful reaction that produces more energy than it consumes. So what makes helium-3 such a good partner for this wonder? Helium-3 is unique because it produces less radioactive waste and less energy than other products, making it a safe and clean energy source. Today, our nuclear power plants use nuclear fission to produce not just electricity, but radioactive waste as well. This makes dealing with uranium, plutonium, and other waste very difficult. If we can use helium-3 for fusion instead of fission, we will eventually have a cleaner, safer, and more efficient way to produce nuclear energy. The discovery of helium-3 has led to a competition for lunar resources, but we still do not have a reliable generator to realize its potential. Many countries and private companies, including the United States and China, have shown interest in mining helium-3 on the Moon. With China discovering new helium-3 deposits on the Moon, competition for lunar resources will accelerate, pushing us into a time when lunar mineral resources are reality, not science fiction. When we look at the Moon, what we see is not only our neighbor in the heavens, but also the clean energy light of our future. Scientists see this element as a potential source for nuclear fusion reactors, an energy source we don't yet have on Earth. But wait until you hear about the Chang'e 6 mission planned for 2024, whose mission is to collect the first samples from the far side of the Moon, hidden from our view. Although it is too early to put a price on this lunar resource, it is certain that it will not be cheap. But there's a challenge: we will need more lunar crystals, especially if we want to have powerful fusion reactors. Sounds like a new science fiction movie, right? But wait, it gets even more interesting. Here's something that might surprise you. Just 25 tons of helium-3, the equivalent of a parking lot, could power the entire United States for a year. With an estimated cost of $3 billion per ton, the discovery could lead to competition in space. Space between countries and companies seeking to mine helium-3 on the Moon, revealing strange and significant discoveries. Do you remember China's first lunar rover, Chang'e 4? It carries the prestigious title of being the first spacecraft to land on the far side of the Moon. Chang'e 4 was launched on December 7, 2018, and landed on January 3, 2019. Chang'e 4 itself also made an incredible discovery. Now let's look at 2019. The announcement was made on July 28 as the rover prepared for a daily retreat to avoid the sun's peak. A scientist noticed something strange in one of the pictures, a strange gel-like substance with a unique color. The rover team immediately abandoned the lunar robot's sleep schedule and began an intriguing investigation. Satisfied with their findings, scientists decided to send the rover back to study these strange objects. They moved the rover from exploring small craters to unusual colored objects. The rover used its visible and near-infrared spectrometer to observe the object and its surroundings to determine its composition. But the mystery of this colorful object still hangs in the lunar atmosphere. Was it remnants of a collision between a celestial body and the Moon? We're not sure yet, but this will keep experts busy for a while. The discovery of the strange object by the rover's visible and near-infrared spectrometer caused hope and excitement around the world. However, although we would like to know more, the fact that the results of the VNIS analysis are still confidential and there are no photos of the shared products causes further speculation. Consensus among scientists is that this so-called gel will not actually be a gel but a shiny molten glass. The glassy material is thought to have formed when meteorites hit the moon, leaving a shiny surface. Mahizan, an Earth scientist at the Open University in the United Kingdom, supports this view. But there are some exceptions. He noted that due to the lack of information about the product, it is difficult to know exactly what its composition is. However, he confirmed that the material could be a type of glass. If this glass material turns out to be hidden beneath the surface of the moon, it could be a discovery of great significance, especially if it contains ice. Another doctor from Syracuse University confirmed this idea and suggested that the material could be moon dust, which turns into glass with the heat of the impacting atmosphere. After all, given the lack of geological processes we see on Earth, such as waves, wind, or biological activity, meteors are one of the few forces that can change the surface of the moon. To explain this, he mentions a glass rock called trinitite, formed from the high temperature of a nuclear test site in New Mexico. He believed that a similar event would occur when meteors hit the moon. Interestingly, this is not the first time that strange colored spots have been seen on the moon. Most of the lunar surface is covered with gray dust called lunar regolith. But in 1972, during the Apollo 17 mission, two adventurers, Harrison Schmitt and Gene Cernan, encountered something strange. There was orange soil at the landing site. After scratching their heads, scientists determined that the strange soil was the result of a volcanic eruption that occurred approximately 3.64 billion years ago. So could this new material be another remnant of a meteorite impact or similar event? The jury is still out, and we eagerly await the answers to the mystery as the story progresses.